guys, my name is Kirsty and welcome to my June wrap-up. Today, obviously, as the title suggests, I am going to be talking to you about all of the books that I read in June, and I'm going to give you my ratings for them. I do have a blog post version of this video as well, which is on my website, so I will leave a link to that in the description box below. On my blog post, I go more into depth about what's going on in my life, so I include the books I'm currently reading and the TV shows that I've watched or films I've watched in that month. I give a little life update. So yeah, that's what's in the blog post, but obviously because I'm filming I talk about the books more because I don't really tend to film reviews for this channel. But yes, so that's what we're going to do today. So let's just get into it, shall we? So in June I only read a total of 4 books, which is really bad for me because I tend to read about 9 books a month, but I only read 4 because I had a lot going on. If you want to know what was going on in my life, then I did post a video the other day about where I've been the last 2 months. The books that I did read were Bitter Blue by Kristen Shaw, which is the 3rd and final book in the Graceling Realm trilogy. I read Daughter of the Pirate King by Tricia Levenseller, and also Daughter of the Siren Queen by Tricia Levenseller, which is the 1st and 2nd book in the Daughter of, I guess, duology. And the last book that I read was Big Bones by Laura Dockrill. To kick this wrap up off, I am going to be talking about Bitter Blue by Kristen Shaw. I gave it a strong 5 out of 5. It is my favourite out of the trilogy. I loved all of the characters. I loved the pace. It was so good. It is set 8 years after Graceling. So if you don't know how this trilogy works, you have Graceling, which is about Katza. Then the 2nd book, Fire, is set about 50 years before Graceling and follows the character of Fire. And Bitter Blue follows the character of Bitter Blue, but it's set 8 years after Graceling. And in Bitter Blue, all of the characters come together and the plots interweave and there's loose ends that are tied up, which is just fantastic. And what I loved about Bitter Blue is that there is so much political intrigue, which I absolutely love when it comes to fantasy books. And I've kind of read a lot of reviews where people say that Bitter Blue was the worst out of the 3 because it was boring, they DNF'd it, and each their own, you know, everyone's allowed their own opinion, but come on, like, okay, the first 100 pages of Bitter Blue were a bit slow, but that's only because Kristen Shaw was building the foundations of the characters and the world that King Lech just left in craziness and a complete disarray, and that Bitter Blue had to pick up after her father. So that's what the first 100 pages are, and then after that we go, it's kind of like a big whodunit, I guess. You know, Bitter Blue's trying to figure out who she can trust in her kind of cabinet, who is betraying her, and there's a little romance involved, but it's a good romance. I do enjoy it, but one of the things that I really liked about this book is that at the end of the novel, Bitter Blue isn't with the romantic interest. So they both kind of separate to go and do their different things and live their own lives, and I found that really good, and I just really enjoyed that kind of storytelling. So yeah, I loved Bitter Blue. I thought it was a great book. I listened to it on audiobook, but I do have the physical copies as well, so I do actually want to reread this series in the future. Obviously not right now because I have just read them, but sometime in the future I do want to reread this series because it's just so good. The second 2 books that I read were obviously Daughter of the Pirate King and Daughter of the Siren Queen by Tricia Levenseller. I gave Daughter of the Pirate King, I think it was 4 out of 5 stars, and then Daughter of the Siren Queen 4.5 out of 5, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but this was a fantastic duology. I had heard a little bit of negative reviewing about Daughter of the Pirate King, and that there was a lot of trigger warnings for sexual assault, and I was just like, do I want to read that then? I don't know. I was a bit apprehensive about going into it, but I thought, you know what, let's just give it a go. You know, pirates aren't really my thing to read about, but I was interested in the premise. It sounded like it had a kick-ass female main character, so I downloaded the audiobook, well, both the audiobooks even, and I started listening to them, and I really enjoyed them. So the story follows the main character of Alosa, who is a pirate captain of her own ship. She's the daughter of King of the Pirates. At the beginning of the book, she allows herself to be captured on board an enemy ship so she can basically find out all their secrets and steal all of their loot. And from there the story progresses, obviously, and I found it very interesting. I haven't read a young adult pirate book before. I've read middle grade ones, like Justin Somper's Vampirates when I was about 8. But I've never read a YA book centered around pirates, so this was a very new avenue for me to go down, and I really enjoyed it. It was very different. I loved the characters, I loved the romance in there, and I don't know, it was just different and strange. And yes, there are times where I wouldn't say triggers for sexual assault, but you know, some of the pirates do infer that they're going to do things to Alosa, so it's more of a verbal sexual threat than a physical sexual threat. So trigger warnings for that if you decide to go into the book. But the premise of this book is basically about Alosa trying to find the 4 pieces of a map so she can find the Isle of Decanter and get all of the treasure that's on that island. So she already has 1 piece of the map, because but I think it's the 4 head families of the pirate realm have a piece of the map. So she's got hers because of her father being the Pirate King, and then there's 3 other heads of families that have them, so it's her mission to kind of get the other 3 pieces, sail to the Isle of Decanter, get the buried treasure. But along the way, obviously, there's hiccups, and she falls in love with one of, you know, the people on the enemy ship, which it wouldn't be YA if that didn't happen, would it really? So that happens. Great trope, really enjoyed it, loved the romance. And in the second book, Daughter of the Siren Queen, it is about the journey to Isle Decanter, and basically it kind of centers around family issues more than romance. I mean, there's definitely romance involved, but it centers around family dynamics a lot more, about Alosa's relationship with her father, who her mother is. So yeah, I mean, there's obviously not that much I can say about Daughter of the Siren Queen because spoilers for the first book, but just know it's a race against time to get to the Isle Decanter and a race against other people that Alosa has to do. So yeah, I would definitely check out this series. It is so good, and I do want like another one, maybe a little novella to tell me what's happening in her life, because I don't know, I just found the world extremely interesting and one that I would definitely love to continue reading about. But let's move on to the 4th and final book that I read in June, which was Big Bones by Laura Dockrill, and this is one of the books that I read for Yalk, which is in less than 2 weeks, and I am not ready at all. I've hardly read any books on my Yalk TBR, which is frightening, so fun times. But this is one of the ones that I read. I read this as an ebook. So yes, this month I actually haven't read a physical book, which is interesting. It was just easier for me to listen to audiobooks and read the ebook. So I've been reading Big Bones, well, I was reading Big Bones for about a month, which is kind of unusual for me because when it comes to YA contemporary, I tend to read the book in a matter of a few hours. But I think because it was on ebook and I'm not a massive fan of reading on my phone, it took me a little longer than I wanted it to. This book follows follows the character of Bluebell, or BB, or Big Bones. You know, she's got quite a few nicknames, and she wants to quit school. She doesn't want to go to college, and she says to her mom, look, I don't want to go to college. I'm done with school, I'm done with education. And her mom's like, you know what, so let's strike up a compromise. You can quit school, but in return you have to keep a food diary and you have to go to the gym, which is also what the doctor prescribed to Bluebell when she went to the doctors. And so Bluebell kind of keeps this food diary, but as she's keeping the food diary, she kind of turns it into more of a diary and writes about what happens over her summer, which is essentially what we're reading. The book is a food diary that she has to hand in to a doctor at the end of the summer. I don't really know how to voice my opinions on this book. I liked it, but then there were bits where I was just, it didn't sit right with me. I mean, I don't know, it was a book following the summer of a girl who identified as fat, as a girl who also identifies herself as fat. Then, you know, I was really excited to see that kind of representation in a young adult novel. So I went into it with high expectations. The beginning of it was pretty strange. I didn't know whether Bluebell was being kind of hurtful and disrespectful, but then I realised that that was just the way that she spoke about herself. She was quite self-deprecating, but at the same time she knew what she was like. She knew she ate a lot, she knew she was overweight, and she knew that she had to kind of keep herself fit, not lose weight. That isn't the moral of the story. The moral of the story is be comfortable with your body, be comfortable with who you are, but at the same time you still need to look after yourself and you still need to exercise or keep yourself fit. And that's the journey that Bluebell takes throughout the book. So the first 75% of the book she's like, oh, food, 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 yay, a little bit of romance thrown in there, and then the last 25% of the book she starts going to the gym, she starts taking care of herself, and you can see that she's more happy because she knows she's doing the right thing for her body and for herself mentally, and it's nice. I just wish that that character development had happened earlier within the book, because that's a lot of the book, that's 75% of the book where nothing is really happening and there's no character development and there's no plot development. So I think that's why I gave this book a 3 out of 5, because of the lack of development within the characters and the story. But it was still an enjoyable read for me, and you know, it was nice to see that kind of representation, and something that I'm looking forward to reading again in another YA novel. I'm on the lookout for YA novels with fat representation. So yeah, I mean, it was good. It was just not as good as I thought it would be. But you can't have 5 stars for everything, can you? So overall, it has been a very good reading month, and yeah, I only read 4 books, but it is the 11th of July at the moment and I've already surpassed my 4 books, so that's good as well. So yeah, that was my June wrap up. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up. If you've got any comments, questions or feedback, just leave it in the comments box below. And if you want notifications when I post a new video, just click on the bell icon below. And yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!